My name's Mike Thompson, right this guy up here, and I'm the triad coordinator with RSVP. Welcome everyone to the presentation today. We have John Wilson from Sensible Finances and Barb Irvin from Nimble Numbers. I mean, these are two super educated people who have a lot of great advice for you today. Topic, of course, is now it's all in your hands, right? I mean, emergencies happen, unfortunate things happen, and it's dropped on somebody who's unprepared. And so hopefully John and Barb can give us a little information to help get us up to speed real quick when that happens. Barb, John, take it over, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I'm Barb Irvin from Nimble Numbers, and I got into daily money management a couple of years ago after helping my parents with their finances, and I helped a couple of friends, and I really enjoyed it. And then I discovered that daily money management was actually a thing, and there's a national association, and there's other people that do it, and there's some best practices out there, so, and insurance. So that's how I got into it. And I have a background that's pretty varied, which really lends itself to helping people with all kinds of different things, anything they pay for, really. So I've worked in government, I worked for nonprofits, the university, so I kind of got around. But that it is interesting because so often I find myself, I started doing payroll for one client who has caregivers, and I used to do payroll when I was at a couple different jobs. So it's funny what comes back to help you later. So, and now here's John.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us to join you today. I'm looking forward to talking about this very important subject. Like Barb, I got involved in daily money management through helping family and friends, working as financial power of attorney for my parents. My background also is varied. I worked for a number of small businesses over the years and did bookkeeping and accounting there. I've done seasonal tax preparation, and I've advised a variety of family and friends on various financial issues. So I really enjoy the opportunity to work with folks, help them get their finances in order, help them develop good financial habits and put them on a good track financially. So my business has been running formally for just about a year now. So some of you, this may be the first time that you've heard of daily money managers. Many of you, no doubt, work with accountants to help you do your taxes each year. You might work with financial advisors, financial planners who help you figure out where you want to invest your retirement funds. But really, neither of these financial professionals offer services that help you with your day-to-day banking, budgeting, bill paying. They're very specialized in what they do. And so daily money managers fill that gap. We also work with small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs who might have, solopreneurs, a one-person shop. But we kind of fill that gap and fill that need to help you with your bills, your budget, financial records organization.
So we tend to have a lot of different types of clients across the different people that are daily money managers. Some people work exclusively with high net worth individuals. There's those of us that work primarily with older adults and their children. But there could be busy professionals that don't have time to take care of their bills, or people that travel a lot, or people in life transition, like what we're going to talk about today. And so we have a wide variety of clients, and they pretty much are people that run from being overwhelmed by finances to not having time or just not wanting to do it. And we can help them wherever they're coming from.
So we talked about bill paying, day-to-day banking, budgeting, those kind of basics of personal finance, but daily money managers also help in other areas too. Oftentimes will help in, organizing financial records, reviewing medical insurance claims, income tax organization. While we don't do generally income tax preparation, frequently will help to gather up all the financial records that are necessary for the accountant to make sure they've got everything they need to get you all the deductions and breaks that you are eligible for when you file your taxes. As Barb mentioned, household payroll, special projects, things like helping with refinancing homes or strategies around student loans, really anything that a client needs some extra help with, daily money managers can be a good resource to assist.
And I mentioned earlier about the American Association of Daily Money Managers, which has been around for about 20 years and has about 700 members across the US and Canada. And we have an annual conference, which we just had, and there's lots of good information. There's always cutting edge changes to software and security and things like that, that it's really good to keep up with. And we also have a forum. We can ask other daily money managers questions when we come across things we haven't done before. So it really helps to have that group of people as a backup, because most of us are solo entrepreneurs. There are people in some of the larger cities, there are people have firms with several daily money managers. Adam has a code of ethics and promotes excellence in service and professionalism. And we also have client confidentiality is important. And we also, by joining Adam, we have to undergo a background check every 2 years. And we also have access to professional liability insurance through the association. Because people don't know that much about daily money managers, it's hard to explain to an insurance agent just what kind of coverage you need. So it's nice that Adam has worked with a company that it's through Lloyd's of London that insure us. So now we get to the topic at hand. And so you've gone through some transition of some kind. Your spouse has been incapacitated or has passed away, and all of a sudden you're in charge of the finances, and you've never had to do that before. It was very nice having your spouse take care of it all, but now it's yours to take care of.
All right, so first of all, don't panic, which is maybe easier said than done. Depending on your background, your experience, you might have very little experience in finances. It might seem very overwhelming at this point, but there are some tools that can help you to chip away, and there's a process to follow in getting organized. And we're going to run through that here this morning. So we would say, start by finding a notebook, a notepad. You want to keep track of all the conversations that you have with people. You'll be talking with, you might be talking with your utility companies, a variety of your bank, other folks. Your journal, don't, do it journal wise, just kind of put the date on there, make your notes. It becomes a reference for you that you can look back to as you go along, and you'll find that it's very helpful. You'll want to gather some file folders and a place to hold them. If your home files are in good shape, you might be able to just work with your filing cabinet. If your filing cabinet is a mess and you don't know anything about what's in there or how it's organized, you might want to just get a file box, an empty file box to start with, and then you can work on merging the files together later. And then you want to prepare a master list to start gathering information. So Barb is going to talk a little bit more about this, but you want to get a list of all your accounts, whether they're bank accounts, credit card accounts, investment accounts. You want to know what all your bills are. your loan payments. And you also want to be aware of your income sources. So what money is coming in from different sources. And Barb is going to share now a template that you could use to do that.
Yeah, so this is going to be something that.
Just a second,
Okay.
guys. John, when should you do that? I mean, you've got all these tasks to do. When should you do that? Is that something you can wait for a few days, a few months, next year?
Well, I guess we're going to talk a little bit later about what you can do to plan in advance.
Okay.
And some of this certainly falls in that category. But from the perspective of, suddenly being thrust into this position unexpectedly, you really should get started right away, particularly on some of the more important bills, right? You don't want to have your home or your car, your home foreclosed on or your car repossessed. If you've got important insurance payments, you don't want to miss a long-term care insurance payment and have that policy lapse, or life insurance payments, perhaps. So you definitely want to, and it's difficult because it's at a difficult time, right? You're involved in a life change. Maybe a spouse has passed away, or if it's a disability, you're dealing with the hospital and the medical bills. And so, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is critical that you attend to it, at least to some degree, to make sure that you don't let any of those important balls drop.
Okay. And just let me say, I'm sorry for interrupting you there. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat box. I'm going to keep watch on those, and John and Barb can also see those. That'll prevent us from my kind of interruption. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem. I guess I'd just add, like with the notebook, that's the very first thing to do, because you're going to be talking to a lot of different people, and especially if you are filing for life insurance claims, every company has different things they want you to send. And it's really important to keep track of whether you've sent them something or not, because in the past, I've had it where you get another thing in the mail and it's like, did I already fill that out? And I go look and it's like, yes, I did. I don't know why they sent me a second one. And you want to know who you talked to and what they said. And don't ever think you can remember, because it's surprising how they all run together when you're doing things that are for similar things like life insurance. And then as far as gathering things, it's really important to have it in a place where you can find it. So get a basket. That might be the easiest thing to do, and put any of the important mail in there, and get rid of the junk mail and just have that together so that you can go through it at some point. And you can use this little template we have, which we're going to be sending this out. It's an Excel template. If you have access to Excel, but there are some other printable ones online I'll show you. So in that template, you can keep track of whatever you want. These are just like, this would be just for the bill pay, keeping track of like, when is the mortgage due? When's the car loan due? The utilities, are those on auto pay? Hopefully they are. And then you don't have to worry about it so much. You do want to make sure that the checking account doesn't get frozen for some reason by the bank. It shouldn't if it's a joint account, but if your spouse had an individual account and was paying the bills out of that, it's possible it could get frozen until the estate settled, once the bank knows that the person has died. So you have to be a little careful about that. So this is just a way to kind of keep track of things, of the accounts. So you need to keep track of what accounts you have: checking, savings, investment, credit card, your income. How is that going to change if your spouse has passed away? You need to know that, some things may change with your income. And then also that, all the bills you can come up with, and you'll have that basket and you can just go through it and start filling something like this in.
All right, so once you've kind of gathered your basic tools together, it's time to begin your search. And I think the place that I would start is trying to decipher the system that your spouse was using. And, hopefully you've got some understanding of how things were being done. previously, but maybe not. If is there a paper ledger someplace that's being used to track things? Is there a spreadsheet online that your spouse was using to keep track of what was paid each month? Is there financial software, Quicken or some other program that is being used? It might be very well organized in Quicken, but you're not much of a computer user or comfortable working in financial software. So in that kind of situation, maybe there's a trusted friend or family member who's got those skills that could help you to decipher that, or a daily money manager could be a resource for you in that situation. But that would be the first place to start, and just to see and hope that things are well organized and that you can get a big jump forward on your organization by understanding what's already been done.
So the first thing you can do is look at the checkbook. Look at if you have copier checks, that's great, because then you can look back and really see what's been written, because sometimes people don't write everything in their register, especially if they have the copier checks. And then you can look at the bank and credit card statements to try and figure out what's on auto pay and when those bills are generally, the payments are pulled from your bank or charged to your credit card. And look back at a year's worth if you can, because some things only are paid once a year. Sometimes there's a life insurance premium that's only once a year, or your auto insurance might be paid monthly. It could be paid quarterly. It might be paid biannually. It's usually 6 months long. So you have to determine all those different bills that are being pulled from your account, and look at Netflix and some of the other things that might be on auto pay that you don't need. That's one thing that I usually go in and look at when I'm with a new client. What are you paying for that you aren't using anymore? And it's surprising how many things people are paying for that they don't realize they're still paying for.
Yeah, I would add that, when I work with clients and getting to know a client's finances, building out their budgets and getting things organized, if you know where the bank accounts are, the credit card accounts, looking back at those historical transactions gives you so much information. You can get the majority of what you need probably just from those statements, if you can find them and review them. The income generally gets posted into there, as well as all the bills getting paid out of there. So your spreadsheet, you can fill out quite a bit of it just by looking at these bank and credit card statements. Mail and paper files would be the next place to look. So in this case of transition, you might have a pile, you likely would have a pile of mail that's built up. Go through it, see if there's anything that's urgent. Are you getting any, collection notice? Are there things that are past due? You don't want to, you want to avoid taking a hit to your credit score. I mean, you've got a lot of things going on at this point, probably. So, maybe a little bit of a hit to your credit report isn't your highest priority at the moment, but you do want to at least scan that mail and triage it, see if there's anything that's really urgent that you want to deal with right away. And then beyond that, add that information into your spreadsheet. Paper files, your filing cabinet, your file box, whatever is there at home, take a look through that. And, hopefully you've got most of your spreadsheet flushed out at this point, and really you're just kind of filling blanks from the mail and the paper files.
Don, we had a question come in. I don't know if you noticed, if you have a credit card that's joint, a joint account and your spouse has passed away, should you cancel that credit card, or how do you handle something like that?
It might depend on the credit card company, but I'm guessing that you would call and tell them, and they'll probably want a death certificate. Everybody wants those. And then they'll probably issue you a new card with just your name on it, or just let you keep it. Often you don't even have to do much, but it's good to just let everybody know and then see what their process is.
Yeah,
And definitely you want to let the bank know.
Yeah, I would say, you be thoughtful about closing accounts. It does impact on your credit report. But you might find that, simplification can be a good tool for you if you've got a number of different credit card accounts and you're not going to be using all of them. This might be a time to simplify and, pare it down to one card or two cards, or so in that case, you might reach out and close that account.
So, especially if your spouse did a lot of stuff online and through email, you want to try and get into that email account. And hopefully you can, and they've given you access to the passwords. Because when you get into the email, that's really important, because that's where a lot of the bills come, and that may be the only way that you know there's a bill. And then you can access the online accounts. If you have to, you can call those companies and get access to the account. One thing to keep in mind is, how is each bill paid? If they're auto paid, there's two different ways to auto pay. You can have, well, there may be three. So you might have, the simplest is your spouse might have gone into your bank bill pay, which is where the bank sends a physical check off, or sometimes they do it electronically, but it'll just be set in there. Like if it's usually that's for a payment that's standard. It's the same every month. So that might be a car payment or something like that. And so the check would go out from the account. And then another way is it might be from your bank, you have an auto pay that you set up to pay. Or you might have it pulled by the vendor, which is more likely, like MG&E, because that changes each month. You need to talk to MG&E about the auto pay if you need to change it to a different account or something, because they're the ones pulling it from the bank. So you need to know who set that up. And it can be very confusing to people to understand whether the bank is pushing the payment out or the vendor's pulling it. So it's just important to keep in mind.
I saw a comment in the chat about opting to have bills come in the mail instead of by email to make it easier. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that conversation. But I think overall, a good theme here is finding the system that works for you. It really doesn't matter whether how you choose to do it, as long as you can find a system that works for you, that you can follow and continue on and manage as you go along. So with bills and electronic bills, paperless billing, as they say, sometimes you can have the option of sending it to multiple email accounts. So you might be able to set it up where you get it and your spouse gets it. So at least that's happening already. You might look at that. So back to me.
Back to you.
All right, so tax returns and related documents. This can be a really good source of information, particularly around income, right? Because you have to report all your income to the IRS, virtually all your income anyway. And so here, if you've got good tax records, you should be able to have any W-2s or 1099s or your Social Security, retirement, income statements. It'll help you determine what accounts you might have. So you might have a savings account in there that has interest or dividends, and maybe you weren't aware of that account, but in your taxes you find this income statement. So now, aha, here's another account that we need to log and keep track of. So it's a great source for that. You can, if you've got those returns and documents in your file cabinet, that's great. If not, if you work with an accountant, you can reach out to them. You might be able to get that information from the IRS as well.
And also for different accounts and credit cards, you can always get a free credit report at annualcreditreport.com. This is the official website to do that. Don't pay for a credit report. You get at least one free a year, and then because of COVID and everything, they increased the number. So you can get more than one a year now. And so you can look at that credit report. It'll tell you past accounts that are closed, and so it'll have a lot of information in there. But that's a good way to know what all the credit cards are that are open, because they might not be a card that you ever carry in your wallet. It might still be in a file cabinet somewhere.
Yep, it'll have all of your store credit cards too. If there's, a Macy's card or JCPenney card or Home Depot card or what have you, it'll all be listed on there. It also includes your loans. If there's any car loans or home loans, if you got a home equity loan, any of that stuff will be listed there. So a great place to look and make sure that you haven't missed anything.
You're up.
Right. So now you've kind of gone through and you've gathered the information on your own as best you can. Your next step would be to fill in the blanks. So it's good to kind of work through it yourself to begin with. It'll help you to formulate questions and be prepared to contact others. And so these are the folks that we've touched on before. If you're having trouble finding your bank account or your credit card statement, you can call your bank. There's a phone number on the back of the credit card you can call. If you Google, just be careful that you get the official site for the companies that you're trying to reach. Financial advisors, investment firms, if you work with a financial advisor, you should certainly reach out to that person. If you don't, you may have access, maybe your money is at Fidelity or Vanguard, or it's with a former employer plan where they have a plan administrator. You can certainly call and reach out to those people. Even if they're not familiar with your individual case, they certainly can help look up your account and answer questions for you. Any vendors that you have, you can reach out to them. Your accountants we talked about already. Insurance agents can be a great resource if you have questions about any of the insurance policies that you have. Current or former employers for income. Maybe you're looking for information on benefits. You get an income payment, but there's deductions out of there for taxes, and maybe for, do you have dental insurance? Dental insurance might be deducted out of one of your income streams that you're not aware of. So you can reach out to those people who are issuing those payments to get more information about them. And then government agencies, and Social Security and IRS are not the easiest to work with. They do have online portals. IRS allows you to request a transcript, particularly if you're filing jointly. You can, if you don't have good tax records, maybe your spouse did the taxes but didn't keep good records, and so you don't have anything. The IRS can provide transcripts from recent years that gives you key important information that will help you not just with your bills, but also to prepare for your next year's taxes. Certainly Social Security, if you've had life changes that may change your claiming strategy, you'll need to reach out to them at some point. But other government agencies, you've got your local property tax assessor. If you for property taxes, and others, perhaps if there's any kind of assistance program. that's being received, you can reach out to them as well.
So a few other resources, you can search for lost or abandoned accounts through unclaimed.org. Life insurance policies, there's a life policy locator, which might be handy because a lot of times life insurance is paid a single payment and it could have been 40 years ago and it's hard to find the policies. So you should be getting statements periodically from those types of insurance. But that also could have been going into an email. So it's good to look things up and see if there's anything out there. And then there's also some more bill calendar templates at this website here. And there's some that are nice and printable. They're PDFs, so then you can write on them. So you don't have to use the one we have here. We just kind of used it as an example. And these, we will be sending Mike will be sending the PDF of the PowerPoint out afterwards. So you'll have all these links. And this is kind of what it's hard to see if you get close to your monitor, you can see, this is one that's kind of filled in. So just an example, pointing out that there's a lot of things that are paid monthly, but there's a few things that are not paid monthly. So like the quarterly tax payments or your property tax, you'd want to talk to your accountant about your property tax payments and whether you pay them all in December or if you can spread them out over the year, which way is better for your tax situation.
All right, so once you have pulled together your basic information, I think it's a good time to at least do some rough budgeting. You might not have all the information, you almost certainly wouldn't have all the information at this point, but you should have enough to get a feel for, how do my bills compare to my income? What do I have left over to buy groceries and gas and some of these other things that aren't, your fixed expenses? And get a feel for, am I in a good place or am I not in a good place? And that'll let you know whether you need to, focus more right now and spend more attention, or whether maybe you can put more attention to your other life issues at the moment and let this, be a little bit more comfortable about your expenses. So at this point too, as Barb had said before, you want to think about how the future might be different. Your Social Security strategy might change in terms of your amounts. It almost certainly would if a spouse had died. Pensions can change. Sometimes a pension will have survivor benefits, and that would change the amount that you're receiving, and that would have an impact on your budget. Your bills too, some of the expenses that you had previously might change going forward. And so you can kind of think about, just take an assessment of where you stand and where you're going. And that should help give you some peace of mind. Even if it's not good, I found that it always gives peace of mind just to know, even if it's a challenging situation that you have to address. It's much better than not knowing. And then at that point, it's a matter of just kind of planning your system. Like I said, you want to find a method that works for you. If it's on paper, that's fine. If it is a computer spreadsheet, that works too. If you want to get in and build out your finances in Quicken or another personal finance software package, that's great as well. It probably depends on the complexity of your finances. If you have very simple finances, a paper ledger and a checkbook might be completely fine. So find that system that works for you, and then decide how you're going to pay your bills. And Barb kind of addressed this previously. You can pay with paper checks, or you can use one of the online payment methods, or setting up auto pay. And then finally, setting up your filing system. If you started building out your own files, if your files were a mess, and you created your own file box and you started creating your own folders to kind of keep track of the organization that you're building and starting from scratch, then think about how you're going to start to integrate other information that might be in the existing files together. And that might be a longer term process for you. But you just, again, you want something that you can manage and keep on top of going forward.
Then there's taxes. So you need to engage with your accountant and maybe your financial advisor to talk about the tax strategy. You may be needing to sell some investments to pay for some things. You need to make sure that you are selling the right things, or you're not going to have a big tax hit because you're selling something that had a huge gain, or you have capital gains. You need to make sure that you're taking your required minimum distributions from your IRA. So that's very important to do because the penalty for not taking your RMDs is very high, like 50% of the money. So you need to make sure you do that. And so you have that plan. You've got a tax plan before you make any big moves, selling anything, buying anything. Create a special place for the tax forms and documents. So at the end of the year, when you start getting those W-2s and 1099s and all those things, that they just throw them all in one spot and you can deal with them later or hand them off to somebody to organize for you. And then also, if you need to make estimated tax payments, be aware of those deadlines, and also talk to your accountant about whether you need to be making those. Also very important to avoid any penalties. So now we kind of talked about how you can figure all this stuff out after the fact, but what about if we're preparing now? And with your spouse, you can work together, and then they'll be a little more relaxed later when things happen.
All right, so the first thing really is to communicate and start the conversation. And I guess, as was mentioned earlier, sometimes that can be a difficult thing to talk about, but it's really important. And so, engaging with your spouse, or if it, maybe you're a caregiver for a parent, a child, now is the time to have that conversation and say, at some point, I may need to take over handling this. What are we going to do? How are we going to prepare for that? I think getting oriented to the existing tools and systems is great. You might not understand them particularly if it's someone who's working in a software package and you're not, but it's a place to start. You need to know what's happening to the best of your ability, reviewing the paper and digital files, and then just thinking about and talking about how you might do things differently. Maybe some of the things that are being done really aren't going to work for you. Like the example before with the credit card, maybe there's, you're carrying 3 or 4 credit cards, and really, if you were managing the finances, you'd really only be comfortable or wanting to have 1 credit card. Maybe there's some simplification you can do now to move in that direction. Just to really kind of open those communication lines and start thinking about what it might look like in the future if you need to take over.
So you want to organize and document everything. It's pretty much what we've been talking about, but you're just doing it before. So you fill in something like that master list that we were using before. Make sure you have a list of all the insurance policies, and if there's when they're due, if they have payments. All the legal documents, really important to have the wills, your will, your power of attorney, if healthcare and financial, If you have a trust, to have the copy of the trust, any titles to cars, boats. And so keeping all those in one place and not it. I just saw this the other day. It made a lot of sense. Is I don't keep the only copy of your will and POAs in your safe deposit box because that's going to be could be very hard to get to if you die and nobody else can get into the safe deposit box. So you can keep it. I guess you could keep it in there, but make sure you've got copies so people can act without getting into the safe deposit box. A list of important contacts, you know, the insurance agent, the investment advisor, the tax accountant, etc. Location of valuables and important papers. So you could have a list, the POAs in this file folder in this cabinet, the, you know, our diamonds are in this safe, whatever. And then all the account usernames and passwords, so important. It'd be good to use some kind of a password program and then you can share that, or you can, some of them have it so you can give access at a certain point to someone else, or you can share them all the time. Another thing that we need to be really careful about is if you have any cryptocurrency, you know, it's all the rage these days, Bitcoin and Ethereum, etc. And those are held in wallets, online wallets. And if you lose that password, which is long and complicated, you're done. You cannot ever recover it. So if there is any cryptocurrency, make sure you know where those usernames and passwords are for those wallets.
All right, so we've covered a lot of information, and you can see that there are a lot of different types of important information that need to be documented and passed on. And here are some resources that can help with this. So the first one is just a free list. Is this one of the handouts, Barb, that you're including?
Yes, this one's a handout that will be sent to you.
Okay, so you'll have the handout as well when Mike sends out the presentation, but here's the link as well. And so this is just a great list that kind of goes through and says, you know, you want to have your insurance policies, you want to have your bank accounts, and just all the a comprehensive list of what we've been talking about. So it's a great resource for that if you want to kind of take on this project on your own. It's a good guide. If you want to go a step further, there's a company, a website called memorybank.com. And this is another daily money manager, actually, who's developed a tool that can either be printed out on paper. Actually, they will send you a binder with 3-hole punch paper with all the forms with the blanks, so you can go through and fill them out yourself and store them in the binder and have it there to pass on and to share. Along with that, you can also purchase an online version, which would have, I don't know if they're Word files or spreadsheet files, but basically the same information and forms, but that you would do on the computer by typing the information in. And so that's a one-time purchase and a pretty good comprehensive tool as well, if you like those packaged forms. And then finally, another one you might consider is mylifeandwishes.com. And this is a subscription service. So you pay a monthly or an annual fee, and they have encrypted storage of this information online. So you would enter it in, it would be stored there. You could share it with the spouse or a child or your financial power of attorney. But that is an ongoing payment. So that might be of interest to you as well.
And that's a local company, actually. And here's the Memory Bank also has a book you can buy from Amazon, and then you just fill it in. It's just, you probably can't see that, but there's just a bunch of pages with questions and tables and things to fill in. So there's, depending on your style, there's different options out there.
And we have templates too. our association, Adam Association, and Barb actually was involved in this effort to develop a template that money managers are using to help gather this information. So if you're looking for help, we could be of assistance as well to help gather that information. All right, so I think lastly, I want to emphasize that, you know, you're not alone in this, right? You know, even if you don't have trusted family or trusted friends that you can turn to help, you've got a variety of financial professionals that can really assist you. So your financial planner, financial advisor, your tax accountant, your estate or elder law attorney, various insurance agents, your banker, lender, realtor. All of these folks have pieces of the puzzle and they're there to help you. So in preparing for the future, I would really encourage you to participate, to get to know these people, right? I do that. My wife and I, whenever we talk to the financial planner, we're both there. When we're talking to the accountant about our taxes, we're both there. Our attorney, we're both there, insurance. So, you know, even though she's not maybe as interested in everything and might glaze over on some of the topics that we're covering, she gets to know the people that we're working with, and she gets a general idea, and actually a pretty good idea of what's going on. So I really encourage you in advance to get to know these people. And if you don't have these people, maybe consider engaging these people. So I know for myself, for example, because I've done tax preparation in the past, I've always done my own taxes. And I'm shifting this year to work with a tax accountant. And one of the reasons is that I want to have somebody there for my wife. If I'm not able to do it in the future, she'll have a much easier transition to take it over herself. So think about engaging with some of these folks if you haven't already.
John, yeah, I noticed one question just came in from Neil in the chat box, but I was interested also, you know, how do you customize your services for individual cases? I mean, what do you find is the usual range? I mean, some people just need to get up to speed and then they can take it over. Others would want you to do the whole thing for them forever. And you know, what kind of fees would one be looking at for this type of service?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, I've got clients where I'm doing everything. There's one client is a woman who's developed dementia, and so she can't really do any of her, take care of any of her affairs any longer. And so I work with the financial power of attorney, who is this woman's niece, and really I do everything for them in terms of banking and bill paying and budgeting, and I also help connect with these other professionals. So we talk with the financial planner, and so I'll get on the call with the financial power of attorney, and we'll talk to the financial planner about strategies and what we're going to do. And so that is one. And then I've got another client where our goal is for me to coach myself out of a job, to get her set up, to get her trained and going. And I have a feeling, I'll probably continue to, meet with her, whether it's monthly or quarterly or even annually, to be there to help. But, our goal is to really get it to very little. So we generally structure our fees as an hourly fee. And so in some of those cases, in common cases, you'll have higher fees for the first few months to get everything set up. And then once the systems are in place, it will pare down to a few hours per month. And then when tax season rolls around, sometimes there'll be another, time where there's additional hours needed for tax. But we're very flexible. Both Barb and I are very flexible. So clients, whatever the client can do, that's great. The client can do those things. And wherever we can fill in and plug the gaps, then we'll fill in and plug the gaps. So if you need us a little, if you need us a lot, I don't charge any minimum amount, or I don't require any ongoing commitment. We just get going, and as long as it's helpful for you, then that's great. And if it's no longer helpful for you, then that's fine too.
Thanks, John. I think you covered that well. I do things like, I have one client, I'm pretty much just special projects for her. So I helped put with meeting with the attorney with her and her daughters to put together a revocable trust. And we put her house into it and her investment account. And then I helped her with a file for a PPP loan because she had a small business that was affected by the pandemic. So we did that. And other people, I go through their mail and pay bills that come in the mail. Even though most of my clients have everything on auto pay, there's still the random thing that comes in. Or at this time of year, there's a lot of donations. So I might help people decide who, get their pile of donation requests and decide what to do. So wide range of things that we do, which makes it fun for me. So especially tax time. I'm weird. I really like doing tax stuff.
Another question in the chat box says from Steve, please make suggestions for selecting a personal trustee for following the directions of our family trust for distributing our assets upon death. What suggestions do you have?
Well, generally the trustees are going to be family members, the successor trustee. And for me, I was the successor trustee, and then my brothers were the next in line to be the trustee. If there's no one in the family that's able to do it, then you could see if an attorney will do it for you, or one of the trust departments. I know Bank of Sun Prairie and Bank of Cross Plains, both of those, or State Bank of Cross Plains, both of those do have people that in their trust department that will act as trustees for a fee, of course. They'll also act as executors for wills. When you have a trust, you generally don't really need to do much as an executor because everything pretty much flows into the trust. One thing I would recommend, what happened with my parents was they were each other's power of attorney. But then my father kind of got dementia, and then my mother was his power of attorney, and then she started getting dementia, but she didn't want to give up any control. So we kind of had this issue because I wasn't the power of attorney until both of them had died or was incapacitated. So that made it really hard. So it's kind of keep that in mind, that if the two spouses are each other's, that it might make it more difficult down the line when one dies or what have you. So, and I didn't become the successor trustee on their trust until they both had passed away. So I wasn't able to do anything until they passed away, which was a problem because my mother had dementia at the end and was not really able to do things. So just a couple tips. Any other questions?
Yeah, we had another one here. It says from Kay, she asks, doesn't closing accounts hurt your credit rating?
Yes, it can. And that's why I said you need to be thoughtful about closing accounts. So it's good to know what your credit rating is. You need to be thinking about, are you likely to be applying for any further loans If you're a senior and your house is your only loan, you've got it refinanced at a good interest rate, you're not likely to be looking for additional credit. You might have some more flexibility there. Also, if your credit rating is very good, it can absorb some account closures. If your rating is low or borderline and you're planning on applying for credit or doing a refinance, then you might want to hold off on closing an account. But it's not the most impactful factor on your credit report. So
aren't, when you close these accounts, aren't they looking for longevity of credit record? So if you have a 30-year-old account, closing that probably have more of an impact than closing a 1-year account. Would that be true?
Yeah, I think so. As you get older, though, you get a much more established credit record.
Okay.
And probably you've got other accounts that are longer. But yeah, as a general rule, I might, if all things being equal, I might opt to keep the account open that has the greater longevity than the one that doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, good. And then, a couple people have asked, realizing that both of you probably charge different rates, and it all depends on the types of services that, you contract with, a client for. What would, here in Madison, the median family salary is about $60 an hour, right? What would a person, and lawyers charge a heck of a lot more than that. What would a person, say minimum on up typically experience from, your average daily money manager?
Yeah, I would say, generally we're less than accountants and attorneys would charge. They've done some surveying of daily money managers, and fees, generally range from 75 to 125, sometimes a little bit higher for very specialized work. The higher end of that range, you'll generally find in larger markets. In a smaller market like Madison, you're going to be on the lower end of that range.
Okay. One more question here from Chris. How is the capability of a person experiencing dementia legally determined so one spouse or a successor trustee can take over accounts? That's in the chat box.
So that is generally in the trust document or the POA. So it's outlined in there, and usually it will say on the advice of a doctor, but sometimes it'll want 2 doctors to weigh in, but it does depend on the document. So in my case, it just needed a doctor to say, so we got mom's doctor to write a letter, and then I was able to take over.
Yeah, and I've had cases where it required 2 doctors to sign before, and they have a legal form that then gets issued.
And the person themselves can give up, say, I don't want to do this, and they can sign a document that says, I'm relieving myself of the trustee duty, and then it would go to the successor trustee. So if it's somebody who's reasonable, which was not my mother, then you can do that.
So you just don't go to the family doctor and say, hey, mom's acting a little wacky, let's write her out of the picture. That doesn't work.
Right. It usually takes a little more than that.
A little more than that. Yeah. I was thinking, people's rights are normally well protected in the system. And so it takes substantial, serious effort to undertake something like this. Yeah. Any other questions? Please jump in. We've got these 2 great experts here. Take advantage of them for a little bit longer if you do. Okay, well, seeing no further questions, I just want to thank you so much, John and Barb. It's been terrific information, and I'm looking forward to getting those presentation PDFs and templates, anything you want me to distribute to our attendees, please send them on to me. And just want to thank you again for offering this information to us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you next
Yep.
month, okay?
Yeah,
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.